I'm going to do the screen sharing dance quickly. If people could give me a thumbs up if they can see a slide. Thumbs up. Thank you, everybody. If I keep looking to my right, it's because I've got your faces to my right. So, right. So, yeah, welcome to the session. This is supposed to be quite a chilled out session. If you need to go toilet, make a cup of tea, don't worry, you're not going to miss too much. But it's fairly interactive. We'll do a quick intro and then we'll get in. I won't do the going around the room doing the introductions things because I know people tend to drop out and join these sessions late, so it kind of doesn't quite have the same effect. So consequence scanning. Oh yeah, I should probably explain what we're doing. Yeah, so we're talking about consequence scanning. We're going to do an exercise using Miro, which is a whiteboard thing. Don't worry if you've not used it before. We've got time at the end for a bit of Q&A and shared experiences if we finish with time. If we run over, which may well happen just due to the number of people, I will follow up with sort of what would have happened. Yeah, cameras welcome. It's always nice to see faces, but definitely optional. I know some people aren't comfortable. So yeah, I work for Society Works, who are the commercial arm of My Society. You may have heard of us through the projects we do, like Fix My Street. They work for you, Write to Them, things like that. Also working our way into the FOI world for councils with a product called FOI Works. But we do service design, discovery, research, loads of stuff. Also with me, who's here to assist me today, is David, our sales director. Yeah, waving his hands there from Brighton. And I think we've got a couple of other Society Works people here, mainly just to make sure I don't get myself into trouble and say anything silly. So what is consequence scanning? So it's probably easiest to talk about the problem first rather than what it is. So we're designing and delivering services at speed, often without the budget we need, or the time we need to consider things, or the right people in the room, and often services that can touch on the more sensitive side of people's lives, local authorities, third sector. It can be things that aren't just commercial things. So it can be hard without a structured process to foresee consequences. Quite often consequences, good, bad or otherwise, aren't revealed until a service is live or something's been running for a little while. And if we can't reliably predict consequences, we can't manage them. And when I say manage them, I mean we want to mitigate the bad ones, and we want to encourage the good ones. And just some examples. So Airbnb probably thought that they would be competing with hotels and things, but actually what ended up happening, they ended up kicking residents out of city centres because they put rents up, and it ended up being the consequences of that being far negative and actually quite bad for them. Uber probably thought that their competition was going to be taxis, but actually it ended up being public transport too, which resulted in actually more traffic in city centres, things like that. And there's loads of these. There's probably everybody's got one in mind that kind of ends up being consequences, good or bad, that should have been foreseen and could have been managed way better. So consequence scanning is a framework. It's developed at Everyone, who have now shut down, but it's been carried forward by the team at Connected Places Catapult, and they're the ones that taught us. And it's a process that you do normally in a workshop format, which is designed to draw out consequences for a future, for a project or an idea or a service. And we've been using it in anger with Hackney Council. They're looking at a way to give people a way to report antisocial behaviour digitally, which obviously is something that, if your alarm bells are ringing, that's exactly what ours were. And this is why we looked into consequence scanning as a way to kind of use it to make sure that we weren't about to build some sort of antisocial reporting Death Star. And it's all about consequences. It's about drawing out consequences that are unintended, intended, good or bad. And notice that it's important to say at this stage that unintended consequences aren't always bad, and intended consequences aren't always good. And that will what will become clear is that it works best on an idea that everybody understands. So if you do this too early, scope's too wide, consequences, because you're trying to think 5-10 years in the future, it can just be too hard to talk about something that's not well defined. So it's something that we kind of already have a scope on, and everybody in the session needs to kind of understand what it is, and it works best in an honest and open forum. So quite often what will be negative consequences, or intended or unintended, will be well known, and kind of if you're not able to talk about them honestly and openly, you can't mitigate them. So it's important to kind of come to an agreement with the people in the workshop that it is honest and open, and if it's not, you won't get out of it what you need. So what we're going to do today is we're going to do a consequence scanning exercise on an idea. So we are service designers, all of us. It's an election year. The councillors of our council have promised to solve the town's parking problems. Things like illegal parking, expired tickets, people sharing tickets, returning to no return areas, parking out of hours, all those things. You know, the town is missing out on income, and we can't afford to employ any more attendants to sort this. So here's the idea. We're going to commission a phone app that allows citizens to report parking violations. The idea is you'll be able to take a photo and upload it to the service. It will use the location information from the photo to automatically get parking restrictions. It will use number plate recognition connected to the parking databases to issue fines instantly. And it will reward and incentivize top reporters with things like local business discounts or money off their council tax and things like that. So obviously the experts here expressed some concerns and wanted to make sure that we did due diligence on this before they started talking about it in the press. You know, so if you didn't get that, the idea is that if I see a car illegally parked on my street, I take a photo, it goes to the council, it issues a fine or doesn't, and I get some sort of reward, like, you know, maybe a point or a coin or something. And I'm in competition with every other resident in the area to find the most parking fines. Before we jump into Miro, any questions, any comments? Everybody looking good. I think Mark said it yesterday that we're a remote organisation and we generally take silence on a call like this as consent. So
we should probably make clear that this is totally made up. This is not a scenario we've worked on with a real council.
No, not yet. But be assured that if they did come to us with an idea like this, this is exactly what we would be doing. So I'll post a link to the Miro board in just a second. I'll make sure it loads. Okay. We'll do a quick. We will do a quick whistle stop tour of Miro. Sorry. Talk amongst yourselves while I remember how to do stuff. Stop screen sharing.
I was just wondering if anybody had used Miro before.
That's a good question.
Yeah, we use it all the time, actually. It's great, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, we like it a lot. We use it for our stand-ups and our retros. It's excellent.
Brilliant. Yeah, I was a skeptic. I must admit, when I saw it, I was like, what is this thing? It seems to do everything. And then when I actually used it in a workshop, I was like, this is brilliant. It does everything. So,
has anybody found any alternatives to Miro?
I've heard there's Mural, but I can't say I've got along with it myself.
Oh, okay.
We've got corporate ICT trying to push the whiteboard in Microsoft Teams, but it's not a patch on Miro.
Yeah.
So you should be able to enter it. If you can't, let me know. And you shouldn't need to register or log in or anything. You should be able to get to it anonymously.
That's not the case, at least for me.
Yeah, I'm in. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, you might need to refresh. I was updating the things on the fly. Oh yeah, I can see people coming in now.
Yeah, it's working now.
Would it be useful for everybody if I shared my screen? I've done this before in a session and I shared my screen and everyone got really confused because they didn't know if they were looking at their own screen or not. If anybody's unable to get into it, let us know, and I will share my screen. But so what should happen is everyone should be able to see a little board that says intro to Miro. Brilliant. So really quick walk through Miro. It's a shared workspace. I kind of explain it to people as, imagine we're all sat around a table. Miro is the table in front of us. But the magic thing about this is the table will grow to as large as we need it to be, and we don't need to clear it up between exercises. We can leave things there. You move around with your mouse and trackpad. The thing we're going to be doing most of is making sticky notes, and to make a sticky note, you just right click and add sticky note, and you can type whatever you want into it. Next to this board, you'll probably see there's a little area called Scratchpad. If you want to try something out or don't know how to do something, chuck it in there. Don't worry if it's messy. You can do loads of cool stuff. You can grab your sticky note, move it around. You can grab someone else's sticky note and move it around. You can draw on top of things. You can join things together with arrows, which is something I actually quite like. If you click on anything, you can see the little blue handles. You can then drag them between things. And could you share your screen for me? Right, Nick, I will. Just bear with me. Just some thumbs up if that screen share is working, please. Thank you very much. Okay, so I've got a button here that brings everyone to me, and all that does is just sort of makes everyone's screen fly across the board and look at what I'm looking at. If you don't move away or touch anything, it will follow me as I move, but I only really use it just to get on to the next exercise. So very much get involved. Don't be worried about making a mess. What tends to happen when I'm doing this for real is that by the end of the session, the Miro board will look like complete chaos, and I'll spend some time just tidying it up and making sure that what we need is there. We're going to do a series of exercises that will be on a timer. Some of them will start and be like individual work, and then we'll have discussion ones. We'll see how it goes. We've got like 45 minutes left in the session, so I'd like to finish with sort of 10 minutes to spare for questions and things. So unless anyone says otherwise, I think we'll crack on. So consequence scanning, what we're going to do today is we're going to identify the consequences, we're going to classify them, and we're going to classify them as good, bad, unintended, or intended, and then we will probably categorize them as well, and then we're going to prioritize them. We're going to decide what's the most important thing. What we're not going to do is deal with mitigation and encouragement and that sort of thing, and that's not what we would usually do in a session anyway. What you want to get out of a consequence scanning list is a list of consequences with a kind of priority against them to say, here's the risks, here's the things that need sorting out, here's the good things, here's the things we should be encouraging. Oh, there's a little picture of Mickey Mouse there. The way it was explained to me was if Mickey Mouse had done consequence scanning at the start of Fantasia, Fantasia would have been a lot shorter. So, so we're going to start. Just going to take our idea and stick it next to board A. So we're going to start, and everybody's going to just, for 5 minutes, make post-it notes and list consequences. This is one of those sessions where there's no bad ideas. Don't worry about making the same ideas as other people. We're going to do, there's an exercise to deal with that later. But so for 5 minutes, I'm going to set a timer. And what I want you to do is just make post-it notes and list consequences, good, bad, unintended, otherwise that you think could arise as a result of this idea. So I will use Miro's timer and we'll crack on. This is excellent. This is a good group. I've done sessions with councils where nobody's done everything and they're all waiting for their manager to start first. I like that everybody's getting stuck in. So one of the prompts we can use is to talk about things like, what could be consequences for the environment, what could be consequences for local business and commerce. Are there things that are there behaviours that could change socially? Like, could this have some sort of unforeseen kind of effect on the community? Could this give commercial businesses a way to make money on the side? One of the things I thought was, could Hermes give this app to their drivers and get them to start, taking pictures of parking? And yeah, I see a couple there already. Is this a symptom of a problem? Are we just going to solve a symptom that's going to manifest? Are we going to solve the symptom of a problem that's just going to manifest itself in other ways? So 10-second warning. I can see people have sort of Post-it notes have stopped appearing, so we're running out. This is great though. So what I'm going to do next is, this is always the messy bit. There's our time. So I'm going to take a copy of all these and put them on next to the next board. So just bear with me as this always goes wrong.
I like the timer. Is that in Miro? I haven't seen that before.
Yeah, so at the bottom, I don't know if you get it as an attendee, but at the bottom there's a couple of tools, and yeah, time is one of them. It's also got voting and polls and stuff, which is really handy if you've got things that need kind of consensus. Okay, so thank you very much for all your consequences. They look great. We've got loads there. So what we're going to do next is we're going to put them on this. Let me just make sure everybody can see me. We're going to go down the board and we're going to put them on this axis. So the axis goes from intended, well, the vertical axis is intended or unintended, and the horizontal axis is bad and good. And we're going to try and put some of these on there. What I'm just going to do, because we've got quite a lot, is make this a bit bigger. Got more room to move. So one of the things I like about Miro is that it very much lets you do these things on the fly. Bigger, there we go. We're not going to worry too much at this stage about duplicates. So what we're going to do is, so let's try, we've got 14 people. Let's try and do it again as a silent exercise. And then if there's ones that people don't agree on or things that can flag up, we'll talk about those at the end. So I'll kick another timer off. I'll do a shorter one. We'll do 3 minutes for this one. Don't worry about it. Feel free to classify other people's. And if you notice that you're moving one that someone's moving to other places, one of the ways to flag it would be to either change the color of it to red or just make a mental note to have some discussion on it. So let's go.
Martin, there isn't a scale top to bottom, left to right. It's just 4 quadrants.
Oh, so yeah, just pop them in the. Can you see there should be labels? Oh, actually, the labels.
Yeah, but there's no sense of order of magnitude. It's just dump them into one of those 4 quarters.
Oh, okay. So the closer to the further to the edges is more extreme. So if something's really intended, it would be at the top. If something's really unintended, it would be at the bottom.
So there is an order of magnitude.
Like yeah, it's not super accurate. So it's just go with your gut. So I'm just going to start making ones pink, which we're going to discuss. Okay, so this is what tends to happen if you kind of zoom out. You start to see the pattern of things going across from the bottom left up to the top right. That's a pretty good pattern. And what's interesting is where there's bad intended consequences are always interesting, and when there's good unintended consequences. I suppose if we were, as we were the service designers, and we're doing this with the the citizen in mind and their needs. I guess there's some here that very much aren't there. So apart from the ones I've made red, are there any that stuck out to people as harder to classify than others?
Two of the ones, I'll admit I created them, which was the "Is the real problem something else?" tickets. They're not quite comments about the idea. They're about like the idea's wrong, maybe. And it's felt like it's not really a consequence of the thing. It's just like, are we even doing the right thing?
So I guess the consequence there is that time and resources is spent on the wrong thing. Like that is a consequences of this idea, I suppose, where resources, money, etc., is limited. If you choose this to focus on, then the consequence is that you'll misplace resources and focus. So one thing I liked is that some people put putting parking inspectors out of a job as a bad unintended consequence, and then someone else put it as a good intended consequence, or as just an intended consequence. And I think that would be something we would flag as a consequence and go back to the councils and be like, is this what you're trying to do? Like, is this the goal? Because if it is, like, we need to prepare for that. And it may well be that exactly the idea is that, well, if this works well enough, we will put parking attendants out of a job. And it's like, okay, so that we've agreed that is an intended thing. So let's talk to the comms people, talk to the legal people, like put a plan in place to do this, rather than be, oh, whoops, sorry, parking attendants, we put all 30 of you out of a job next week. And that's the thing, like working on things like this, it is about planning rather than stopping. Like, as much as I think that would be a bad thing, that if that's what's to be done, then it's how can we do that in the best way. Another one that I thought was interesting was people choosing not to park in the town. Like, is that intended? Does that mean that they're going to another town and that's a bad thing, or does that mean that they're taking more public transport and things like that? One that I put, and I can't find it now, is in the short term, will the council become dependent on this extra income? But as it causes behaviour change over time, people get really good at knowing the parking regulations and stop parking badly. The fines go down, and then suddenly the council's got a hole in their budget, and they'll be thinking up the next thing they can do. Okay, so mindful of time. So what we're going to do next is, I don't know if anyone's done this before, we're going to do a sorting exercise. I can never remember what it's called. A reverse card sort, I think they're called. So we're going to, I'll take a copy of everything again. And what I want people to do is drag the post-its together that feel like they're related. Don't worry about what we're then going to do is we're going to have several groups of consequences, and then together we're going to think up names, titles for these categories. What this is for is it gives us a good idea of the kinds of things we're doing, and it may well be that the same mitigation or the same encouragement would cover more than one thing at a time. So let's do the thing where I try and take a copy of everything again without breaking anything. And the great thing about Miro is we don't lose what we've done. This is just a copy of things. So don't worry about breaking things out of the groups they're in now, because that's saved on the frame above us. So I think I'll give this a 5-minute one. So the idea is grab a post-it, drag it next to a post-it that looks related, and then after about 5 minutes we should have some nice groups of post-its. So I'll kick the timer off and we will start. And I say definitely don't be worried about undoing someone else's work or dragging someone else. Like what's interesting is the conflicts should later become the discussion point. So at the end of this session, when I say anything giving you any trouble or anything you can agree on, like those are the ones you talk about. We've moved a bit. Can I move the whole thing? Yes. Okay. So I'm going to start sort of drawing some circles around what look like fairly defined groups. We just ignore. Don't worry too much if there are the odd ticket that just doesn't fit with the others. That's fine too. Okay, looking pretty good. We've got some nicely grouped stuff. Anything stick out to anybody is potentially tricky? Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to name these groups, and I wouldn't normally stick a timer on this, but I don't want to run out of time. So the timer is for me rather than you. Let's, starting at the top left, we've got the one that is GDPR, privacy issues. Any suggestions for a good name for that one? Should we just something like privacy?
Yeah, I think so.
Let's go for that. David, my assistant, would you mind, as I'm naming these on the board below, could you make a post-it note for each category? Thank you very much.
Yeah, sure.
The next one is the one to the top right. Huge demand. What if people struggle to access it? Smartphone access. I suppose that would be accessibility or something like that. Let's go for that. I'm going to move fairly quickly on these, just so we've got time to do it. But if you really disagree with the title, then shout. Moving clockwise around the top. Incentivization. These all seem to be around the incentives. And the next one is, let's call that increase revenue. This one. So this middle one here, parking inspectors out of a job, displace other people to towns, people choosing not to park in the town, economic impact. Anybody got a good one for that one?
I think what you just said there, I think economic impact is probably a good one.
To the right, I'm going to circle around that one, but no more parking violations. Anyone got one for no more parking violations might encourage good parking for fear of vigilante public, more citizen involvement in community issues. Let's just call that parking improvement. Carrying on. Instant fine, is that group down in the top bottom right, looks like appeals and things. Anybody got a better one than if we just call that one appeals?
Maybe like unfair.
Unfair. Let's call it unfair appeals / appeals. Delivery drivers not being fined. Oh, so that's interesting. So this is like what would we call this? Like people not having an effect on other industries or other people's jobs. I don't quite know how I would.
Actually, that one's probably there.
Yeah. So let's call it
What about like business impacts?
there we go. This is why I don't do this by myself. I'm so bad at words. Council comes dependent on parking fine and income. Let's call any ideas on the income and revenue type ones?
Unsustainable.
Rather than unsustainable, let's just call it sustainability. Excuse my spelling, or don't. So accuracy of the system and stuff. So yeah, so I guess the consequence here is that it exposes or makes clear that the data the council holds isn't good enough, which can lead to problems. So how would I name this? Infrastructure. I'm good. Go for infrastructure. And then the big middle one, this one's all about, yeah, the kind of the social side of it, you know, vigilante parking wardens, personal vendettas, community relations, that sort of thing. Should we just call this one community?
Yeah, I would say community or social impact.
Brilliant. And just on time, social impact. I like. Okay, Zarina, is that you making everything look really neat and tidy?
How could you tell?
I just knew, making everything bold. Okay, so what we've done now is we've now got these groups of categories around the ideas, and they may not be perfect. They may not absolutely like cover everything. But what this helps us do is prioritize at a slightly higher level which ones of these are more important than others, or which ones we care about more. What I've done in the past with this as well as using the categories, if there's been particular consequences that have been felt by the group to be like, this particular consequence should stand by itself, we may well add it to the next section separately as well. But the idea of the next section is, on the board below, we're going to prioritize these consequences. So for, have we got the post-its for the ideas? So we're going to quickly make a post-it for each of the categories we just did, and we're going to decide as a group on which ones are high, medium, low priority. And it's not that they're good, bad, unintended, or otherwise. The ones in the red just mean they're the ones we want our managers to focus on first, and the ones in the green are the ones we think we could, if we'd never got to them, it would probably be okay. And again, what's great about Miro is that we don't need to worry about tidying up the work we've done before. We've still got that recorded. What I typically do at the end of a session is I would transpose all of this information into a spreadsheet, which if you're a council type person would probably be the first version of a risk register or something like that, and you can hand it to the people who have got that kind of risk training to do their mitigation and their scoring and that sort of thing. But what we're trying to do is to give to the people with the decision-making power a list of things they should be worried about. We're not trying to tell them how to mitigate them or how to solve them, but if they do this idea, here's are the things that may happen, and hopefully it would give them a good signal as to whether or not to pursue the idea, or if they did pursue it, how it might be affected. So let me just count. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. We've got 11 categories. Oh, I didn't spot those ones that weren't in there. I'm going to stick a second category, and we're just going to call this one other, just so we've captured it. And have we got 11 post-its? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We have. Okay. We'd normally do this as a group discussion, and we might spend a long time on this, deciding the ins and outs. For the sake of this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go around the group and say, Zarina, will you put what you think social impact should be? Will you drag social impact into the circle you think it should be in, rather?
Remind me what the colours of the circles mean.
So red is high, like important, green is low importance, and yellow is middle, medium. So brilliant. Pick Emma, would you like to decide infrastructure? If you're able to, just shout. If you're not, it's fine. Anything happening? How about Rosie? So what we're going to end up with is loads of stuff in red, because this isn't a real thing. We've got no stake in this ourselves. Genta, could you do incentives? So the consequences as could come from incentives.
Yeah, sorry, just trying to.
Don't worry if you, yeah.
No, so I'm catching up with everything.
Thank you, Zarina, for labeling them. So do we think like the problems that might arise of having incentives for idea, do we think that should be something we need to look at quite urgently?
No, potentially not.
Okay, so let's stick it in there. Okay, actually, right, we are low on time, so let's quickly just stick. It doesn't actually matter because this isn't a real idea, but what we would be doing is going through and saying, agreeing as a group, the priority of these things. So we are telling the powers that be that we're really worried about the social impact of this idea, and you should be looking at mitigating the consequences. Possibly, the economic impact, good or bad, you should be looking at that one. We're not so worried about the sustainability of the idea, and we're not so worried about the incentives, and we're kind of middle ground about parking improvement. So what we've got now, if I bring it to me and zoom out, we've got 4 boards of ways of classifying these consequences. And what I would do now as the person running the session is put all these into a spreadsheet, and they would then have against them, are they good, are they bad, are they intended, are they unintended, what's their category, what's their priority, and I'd take their priority off of their group, but each one would have an individual priority, and then we would then tweak them as we go. So if there was something in here in our of our issues that we thought actually outside of its category, we've said, say for example, we've said that we're not too worried about incentives. However, we're really worried that because you said council tax as an incentive, we're actually really worried that that might cause some problems. So we might well decide to take that one out of the low priority and actually say, well, this one is a high priority one. So you do get to accept them, but what we're looking for is like a general indication. So that's the kind of things we do in an exercise. Tends to go over a bit of a longer period, and it tends to have what you end up with the attendees in the session is you will have people who see different sides of the business, so that the things that come out of it can be quite different. For example, we had, when we did the antisocial behaviour work, we had communications people in, we had actual officers who ran the service on the ground, we had IT people, so like they all had very, very differing views and different ideas. So what we ended up with was actually uncovering some consequences and things that no one had considered individually, but as these ideas came together, it worked really well. So we're going to go back to the slides now, and I should be still showing my screen, hopefully. Yes. Okay, so that is consequence scanning, and as I said at the beginning, and it's a bit easier to see now, that it's a process that works best when people can be honest and open and can talk freely. So it may well be that there'll be some level of like clandestine secrecy amongst this, where we don't release all the consequences, but there are plans and there are a record of things being considered. It's not just for service design, that's what we use it for, but it can be applied much more widely. You could imagine this happening, talking about things like planning developments, things that happen in local plans, that sort of thing. But the goal is, regardless of what you're doing it for, at the end of the process, you have this prioritized, classified list of consequences that you can then hand over to the people who would be mitigating it and that sort of thing. And it's very, very new and evolving thing. So it's a framework, free to adapt, reuse, change. I'm thinking about talking to the people from Connected Places Catapult with putting together a working group to kind of keep this going and keep track of ideas and feedback and stuff, so we can continue to evolve this. It is very, very loose and unstructured and informal at the moment. So hopefully we can make it something more formal and give people more guidance on how to use it. But if you're looking to use it or think someone might be interested, then I'd very much give us their details or give them mine, and we'll talk. So any questions, anything people want to say?
I just wanted to say thanks. That was really useful, actually. It was really good to see the thought process, and I think it kind of revealed my own biases, because I tend to be quite user focused, but then seeing how other people looked at things like economical sustainability, it makes you think of like the wider impact. So yeah, that was really helpful.
Good, thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah. I would echo that, Martin. Just it's Tom here, and really helpful. I had to duck out for the last part, but I've just ducked back in again, and really useful tool to have in the toolbox. I think that's excellent. Thank you.
Yeah, brilliant. My email's there, martin@mysociety.org. Website's there. Any questions, queries, or follow up, feel free to send it through.
Excellent, thank you very much, Martin. And I think possibly I'll be getting in touch. Then maybe, obviously we're slightly sort of time sensitive here this week on Local Gov Camp, but maybe we could run another consequence scanning activity and get in touch with all the people that have been with us today, and maybe some others that haven't been able to make it. There were a few people that emailed in and did say could they have access to the recording. They couldn't make it, and maybe we could do something that lasted a bit longer. And gave people more of an opportunity to get under the bonnet, as it were. So this has been recorded, and I will share that with all of you. Tom, you can catch up with the bits you missed. But yeah, maybe we can, maybe we can do something in the next couple of weeks and, do a longer session.
Brilliant. Yeah. And if anyone has any specific feedback on how the session went, that'd be good as well. Because I wasn't quite sure how to demonstrate it to people who weren't sort of in the experts on the subject matter. So
excellent. No, well, a round of applause, a virtual or round of applause. If you want to unmute, and let's have a round of applause.
Well done, Martin.
Good. And a thumbs up from Hannah. Excellent. Yeah. Use all of the Zoom functionality, do please. Excellent. So thank you very much, Martin. Thanks, Reno. Thank you, David. The recording I'll try and start getting these recordings up online later on this evening from the previous sessions and from this session. So if you're not joining us later on, stay safe, stay well. If you are joining us later, I look forward to seeing you later. Have a good day, everyone. Just about to end the session now.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.